Yeah, all I really want to add to that is that it's important to keep in mind that, like, when the petrodollar system has been, the standard for keeping the dollar the global, or reserve currency, the U.S. has gone to war and like killed millions of people to defend that. The U.S. government, or rather U.S. empire, is willing to go to extreme lengths to defend the dollar. So the idea that they would just sit idly by and just like let dollarization happen without having some sort of plan in the works, especially knowing that they couldn't keep this going indefinitely and that the world was going to move at some point to a post-oil economy. I think it's important to keep in mind that these people have been very serious and played very dirty and created insane instability just to keep the dollar the global reserve currency.
As you heard, the speculations are growing bigger and bigger than many stronger countries like Saudi Arabia have started selling and buying goods in currencies other than US dollar. Even though Mohammed bin Salman started trading in other currencies earlier, as their petrodollar deal ended officially. The US-Saudi petrodollar deal, established on June 8, 1974, was an agreement through which Saudi Arabia agreed to trade crude oil in US dollars in exchange for military equipment and assistance from the US. The word petrodollars refers to the US dollars obtained by oil exporting countries from the sale of oil. However, when the pact expired on June 9, 2024, Saudi Arabia declined to renew it. This raised fears in the global financial markets about the strength of the US dollar. Saudi Arabia may now freely trade crude oil in any currency it chooses and is no longer required to use US dollars. Furthermore, according to MSN, the petrodollar's expiration might damage the US dollar and, by implication, the US financial markets. If oil is priced in a currency other than the dollar, global demand for the dollar may fall. According to AMB Crypto, a crypto website, gold and Bitcoin are the best hedges against the non-renewal of the petrodollar arrangement. According to reports, the expiry of the agreement may accelerate the trend of using other currencies such as Bitcoin for international trade, weakening the US dollar's global dominance. Now we have started to understand why US government has allowed big firms to buy Bitcoin as soon and as many as possible. So, let's again listen to what Webb has to say about this.
Is that it's important to keep in mind that, like, when the petrodollar system has been, the standard for keeping the dollar the global, or reserve currency, the U.S. has gone to war and like killed millions of people to defend that. One of the likely motivations, obviously there's more than one, but one of the key ones in invading Iraq, I would argue, was the fact that Saddam Hussein, not long before the invasion, had started selling oil in euros instead of dollars and made a lot more money, showing by example to other, other OPEC members that they could make more money selling in different currencies than the dollar. And then, of course, you have the case of Libya in 2011, where Gaddafi was trying to move to a gold-backed currency called the dinar and was selling that to African countries, a lot of which either use dollars or they use, French financial stuff. And that's why you had the U.S. and France essentially lead that regime change operation with devastating consequences for Libya, which used to be the safest country in Africa, then became the most dangerous, and has been cited as an example of or a reason for why immigration got so out of control in Europe after that point. So there are cases where the U.S. government, or rather U.S. empire, is willing to go to extreme lengths to defend the dollar. So the idea that they would just sit idly by and just like let dollarization happen without having some sort of plan in the works, especially knowing that they couldn't keep this going indefinitely and that the world was going to move at some point to a post-oil economy. I think it's important to keep in mind that these people have been very serious and played very dirty and created insane instability just to keep the dollar the global reserve currency, because it gives a lot of advantages just to the US. And I fully feel that they intend to keep those advantages, even if it means a different system. And then you have the IMF come in and all these other entities, and what they try and do after the 2001 economic collapse is have Argentina engage in things like debt for land swaps, debt for resources swaps. And this has been going on not just in Argentina, but lots of, most of Latin America, arguably, for a very long time. And it's a resource grab.
Yeah.
And, some of what we allude to in this piece and what we hope to allude to in an upcoming upcoming reports and a book, is that a lot of the people that I've written about and that Mark's written about and that we've written about together are the engineers of that expressly. And by blowing out Latin American debt in the 80s and 90s, it was a way to basically yoke Latin America to the United States and, or more broadly, a lot of the transnational economic interests that are based in the United States, like Wall Street banks, for example.
US will go to any limit to defend de-dollarization, and buying Bitcoin at large scale is one of their plans. They previously went to war with anybody who opted other currency, like Saddam Hussein opting euro, to sell oil in Libya too. So Whitney believes the US has a long history of aggressively defending the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency. Countries that have attempted to sell oil in other currencies, like Iraq's Saddam Hussein with the euro and Libya's Muammar Gaddafi proposing a gold-backed African currency, have faced severe consequences, including US military intervention. Now, as countries like Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia explore alternatives to the petrodollar system, the US is seeking new ways to maintain dollar hegemony. One strategy appears to be gaining control over Bitcoin, the world's largest cryptocurrency, through Wall Street giants like BlackRock and Fidelity heavily investing in the space. Whitney Webb argues that the ultimate goal is not to destroy Bitcoin, but to co-opt it and make the market largely denominated in dollars, a Bitcoin dollar system akin to the petrodollar. However, Webb cautions there are significant risks with this approach. The increasing ties between the crypto industry, Wall Street, and US intelligence agencies could lead to centralized control over a decentralized technology. She warns that BlackRock's massive expansion to own essentially everything through Bitcoin should not be blindly trusted. The push for digital ID and central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, also poses major threats to financial privacy and freedom. Webb highlights concerning connections between influential figures pushing for these systems and intelligence-linked entities. CBDCs could enable governments to restrict spending and increase surveillance. Ultimately, Webb believes Bitcoin is essential to the plans of financial elites, but there is still time to utilize it in a way that neuters those plans. She advocates for building tools on Bitcoin that protect individual sovereignty and counter centralized power grabs made under the guise of fighting deflation or regulating crypto. The battle between the US dollar system and competing powers will have major geopolitical ramifications. While the US is maneuvering to entrench dollar dominance through Bitcoin custody, it remains to be seen if this will be enough to stop the gradual global de-dollarization trend. Historically, the US has shown it will take drastic measures to defend the dollar's supremacy. But Bitcoin presents a new paradigm that could limit the effectiveness of traditional interventionist playbooks. And now, let's see what she believes about the Saudi and United States relations moving forward and what Mohammed bin Salman is planning to do.
Well, on the case of Saudi Arabia dumping the petrodollar, you could argue that Mohammed bin Salman for some time has been moving away from the dollar well before that official announcement. Basically, when he came to power, he was trying to move Saudi Arabia to a post-oil economy. He launched his Vision 2030 plan and made overtures there that he was going to try and move Saudi Arabia away from oil and sort of make it a leader in the fourth industrial revolution, including in fintech. And we've also seen like other big actors in Middle Eastern oil specifically, like in the United Arab Emirates, for example, do kind of essentially the same thing. So I think it's something that sort of has been planned for some time. And what's interesting is that MBS, as soon as he came to power and during the Trump administration, was very close to Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, who was also we know from emails that have since come out promoting the idea of like stable coins, like an official US dollar stablecoin. He actually, I think it was like a Sam Altman blog post that he shared with Steve Mnuchin of the Treasury Department, talking about, the USD coin, which, this is before Circle launched USDC, but interesting. So it's very possible that these discussions were being had like some time ago, that it's not as recent as it may appear to be based on headlines that have been coming out recently.
Ultimately, Whitney Webb believes Saudi Arabia's move away from the dollar is part of MBS's grand strategy to position the kingdom as an influential player in the emerging multipolar world order. By building ties with China And joining alternative financial frameworks like BRICS, Saudi Arabia aims to secure its long-term economic and geopolitical interests in a post-petrodollar era. This tectonic shift will likely accelerate de-dollarization and intensify challenges to US global economic leadership in the years ahead. And that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future updates. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.